You ever sat there wondering why someone you cared about, someone you showed up for, someone you gave everything to just let you walk away, like it didn't even matter, like you were disposable? Let me tell you something loud and clear. It was never about your worth. It was about their walls, their fear, their inability to stand in the heat of real emotional connection. Avoidant people don't let you walk away because they don't care. They let you walk away because it's easier for them to feel in control of the exit than to risk feeling abandoned. It's self-protection, not indifference. When intimacy knocks, they run. When love tries to settle in, they build walls. When you get too close, they feel exposed. And instead of leaning in, they retreat. They'll often convince themselves you'll leave anyway, so they emotionally check out before you can. And here's the brutal truth: they're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to survive their own emotional battlefield. That's what makes it confusing. That's what makes it so painful, because part of them might genuinely want connection. But the moment it requires vulnerability, they freeze. And when you finally have enough and walk away, they let you. Not because they don't care, but because your presence triggered a truth they're not ready to face. But don't take that personally. Don't you dare internalize that silence, that distance, that indifference. You're not hard to love. You're not too much. You were just too real for someone who's still afraid of their own feelings. So if someone with an avoidant pattern lets you go, don't chase, don't shrink yourself. Walk not because you're weak, but because you finally realized you deserve love that doesn't run. And here's what you need to hear today. Them letting you walk wasn't rejection. It was redirection. Toward healing, toward someone who chooses you consistently, toward peace. Sometimes love doesn't fix someone. It frees you. And your freedom begins the moment you stop begging to be understood by someone who's not even listening. Avoidants don't push you away because you're unlovable. They push you away because vulnerability feels unsafe to them. That's something most people misunderstand when dealing with an avoidant partner, friend, or loved one. On the surface, it looks like they don't care. It feels like you're chasing someone who doesn't want you, doesn't see you, and doesn't value the connection you're offering. But what's really going on under the surface is a deeply rooted emotional defense system. For the avoidant, closeness is a threat. Intimacy is not interpreted as comfort or security. It's interpreted as pressure, risk, exposure. The very things that make a relationship meaningful, emotional depth, honesty, connection, are the things that send them into fight or flight. Avoidants learned early in life that vulnerability led to disappointment, rejection, or emotional neglect. So they adapted. They built a wall. They became self-reliant to the extreme. In their world, needing someone equals weakness. Relying on someone means handing over control. And love is a beautiful dream, but also a terrifying one. Because what if it disappears? What if they open up and it goes wrong? That fear becomes stronger than their desire for connection. That fear becomes the silent voice telling them, don't get too close. So, when you come along, consistent, open-hearted, trying to build something real, they panic, not always in loud or obvious ways. Sometimes it's subtle, emotional distancing, mixed signals, silence after closeness. Sometimes it's arguments over nothing, pulling away when things feel too good, or shutting down just when you think you're finally reaching them. And you, being someone who's emotionally available, try to fix it. You offer more love, more understanding, more chances. You believe that if you just hold on a little tighter, they'll see you, they'll stay. But instead, the more you lean in, the more they pull away. Because to them, closeness equals danger. Your love feels overwhelming, not because you're too much, but because they were never taught how to receive it. It's not personal. That's the hardest part to understand. Their avoidance is not a judgment on your value. It's not about your looks, your intelligence, your kindness, or your ability to love. It's about their wiring. They aren't trying to hurt you. They're trying to protect themselves from a pain they don't even fully understand. But while it's not personal, it is real. You can't heal someone's attachment wounds by overgiving. You can't force someone to feel safe if they've never learned how to trust. You can stand there with your arms wide open, offering everything you have, and they'll still choose distance over depth. Not because you're unworthy of love, but because they're afraid of receiving it. In their mind, if they push you away first, they stay safe. If they don't get too attached, they don't get hurt. So they keep you at arm's length, even if it means losing something beautiful. Letting you walk away is about their fear of intimacy, not your failure. This truth can be hard to digest, especially when you're the one left feeling confused, hurt, and wondering what you did wrong. But the decision to let go, or to allow you to leave without a fight, often stems from the deep emotional discomfort avoidance experience when connection becomes too real. It isn't that they don't value you, it's that they don't know how to value closeness without feeling overwhelmed. In fact, as strange as it sounds, the more significant the bond becomes, the more threatened they feel. Emotional intimacy triggers the very fears they've spent their lives trying to avoid, fears of being exposed, abandoned, dependent, or emotionally vulnerable. Avoidant individuals often live with the internal belief that people will eventually hurt them, that love leads to loss, and that closeness brings pain. These beliefs usually aren't conscious, but they drive the avoidance behaviors. When someone with this attachment style sees a relationship growing deeper, their instincts kick in, their nervous system goes on high alert, and their mind starts looking for exit strategies that can show up as detachment, ghosting, passive-aggressive behavior, or sudden disinterest. And if you, sensing the shift, try harder, try to get closer, try to fix it, try to prove your love, it only intensifies their anxiety. They feel cornered, emotionally flooded, and their solution is to withdraw or shut down. From the outside, it looks like they don't care. It looks like you were never important. But in reality, your presence, your consistency, your willingness to love them in a deep way actually challenged everything they believed about safety and control. That's the paradox your love was triggering, not because it was wrong, but because it was real. And real love requires emotional exposure, something they've trained themselves to avoid. So when you finally walk away, not because you want to, but because you have to protect your own heart, they let it happen. Not because they don't feel something, but because confronting those feelings would mean confronting themselves. Letting you go is their way of restoring internal safety. In their mind, it's easier to grieve a loss than it is to face the fear of being seen, being known, and possibly being left. So they convince themselves it's better this way. They rationalize, they minimize, they emotionally disengage, and you're left carrying the weight of a goodbye that feels one-sided. But this wasn't about your shortcomings. It was about their inability to cope with closeness. They let you walk not because you weren't enough, but because you were becoming too close for their comfort. Their fear made them choose distance, even at the cost of losing something meaningful. And that choice reflects their fear of intimacy, not your failure to love them right. You can't love someone into healing. They have to choose it for themselves. This is one of the hardest lessons to learn when you're in a relationship with someone who has avoidant tendencies. You see their pain, you recognize their walls, and you want so badly to be the one who shows them that real love can be safe, stable, and nourishing. You think, if you just love them enough, if you stay patient, if you prove that you're not going to hurt them, eventually they'll open up. Eventually they'll heal, but that's not how healing works. Healing is not something you can give to someone. It's something they have to want, pursue, and allow for themselves. The desire to help someone grow often comes from a place of genuine love and compassion. When you care about someone deeply, you want them to feel whole. You want them to experience the safety and depth of the connection you're offering. But if they aren't ready to confront their wounds, if they haven't even acknowledged that they need healing, then all the love in the world won't be able to reach them. Your love might feel like pressure. Your emotional availability might feel overwhelming. Your vulnerability might make them feel like they're being asked to do something they simply don't know how to do. Open up in return. Avoidant individuals often operate from a place of survival. They've been hurt before, and rather than deal with that pain, they compartmentalize it. They suppress it. They believe that independence is safer than intimacy. So when you come along offering warmth and connection, their instincts tell them to be cautious, to retreat, to test your patience. They may even sabotage the relationship to confirm their fears that love always ends in disappointment. In these moments, your efforts to love them harder or stay longer can become emotionally exhausting for you. It's noble to want to help someone heal. It shows your depth and your strength. But it becomes damaging when you start sacrificing your own well-being, your needs, and your emotional safety in the process. You start to shrink yourself, you begin to overextend, you tolerate emotional unavailability, inconsistency, and confusion, all in the name of love. And slowly, you begin to lose pieces of yourself while trying to save someone else. Real transformation happens when a person makes a conscious choice to grow. That requires self-awareness, emotional responsibility, and a willingness to sit with discomfort. No one can do that work for them, not even someone who loves them deeply. You can inspire change, you can be a mirror, but you cannot carry the weight of someone else's healing. That journey must be self-led. Otherwise, any growth they experience will be temporary, dependent on you, and likely to collapse the moment you're no longer carrying the emotional load. And that's not love, that's a burden no one deserves to bear. Walking away isn't weakness, it's strength. So many people confuse staying with loyalty and leaving with failure, especially when you've invested your heart, time, and energy into someone you care deeply about. But there comes a point when staying becomes a slow form of self-abandonment. When you're constantly trying to prove your worth, constantly holding space for someone who can't or won't meet you halfway, eventually the emotional weight becomes too heavy to carry. It takes far more courage to let go of something you love than to cling to it out of fear, hope, or habit. When you're in a connection with someone who is avoidant, your emotional needs often go unmet. You find yourself questioning your value, your sensitivity, your expectations. You begin to think maybe you're asking for too much when all you're really asking for is basic emotional presence, honest communication, vulnerability, consistency. These are not luxuries in a relationship, they are necessities. And when you don't get them over time, it chips away at your self-worth. You learn to suppress your voice, dismiss your needs, and accept crumbs when what you truly deserve is the whole table. Choosing to walk away doesn't mean you didn't love deeply. It doesn't mean you didn't try hard enough. In fact, the decision often comes after you've given everything. You've communicated clearly. You've been patient. You've stayed through the confusing cycles, the hot hand, cold behavior, the mixed signals. You've held space for their fear, their silence, their resistance. You've poured from a cup that hasn't been refilled in ages. And when you finally say enough, it's not because you've stopped caring. It's because you've started caring about yourself. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to choose peace over chaos. Sometimes it's removing yourself from a dynamic that drains you, so you can begin to reconnect with who you are outside of the emotional push and pull. It's not easy. Walking away from someone you love hurts. But staying in a situation where your love is constantly questioned, dismissed, or avoided is a deeper kind of pain. The pain of betrayal to self. We are taught to fight for relationships, but what we're not taught is how to recognize when that fight is one-sided. Love is not supposed to feel like convincing. It's not supposed to feel like waiting for someone to meet you at the emotional depth you've already shown. Love, in its healthiest form, is mutual, it's collaborative. It's safe, and when that kind of love isn't present, choosing to walk is not giving up, it's rising up. It's a declaration to the universe that you are no longer available for half-hearted efforts, emotional breadcrumbs, or inconsistent presence. You are reclaiming your power, your worth, and your right to be loved in a way that feels whole and reciprocal. That is strength. Their silence or indifference is not a reflection of your worth. It can be incredibly disorienting and painful when someone you love responds to your vulnerability with emotional distance. When you're met with silence after opening your heart, or when your presence is met with cold indifference, it's easy to internalize that behavior and begin to question yourself. You may start wondering if you were too emotional, too needy, too intense. You replay conversations in your mind, searching for the moment you messed up or did something wrong. But the truth is, their lack of response isn't about you. It's about them and their inability to process or respond to emotional intimacy in a healthy way. Avoidant individuals often detach not because they don't feel anything, but because feeling something is uncomfortable for them. They haven't developed the tools to engage emotionally when it counts. They often grew up in environments where expressing emotion was discouraged or punished, so they learn to shut down as a form of survival. That shutdown response becomes automatic, especially when they're confronted with strong emotional expressions from someone else. So when you reach for them, trying to connect, and they go silent, it's not necessarily because they don't care, it's because they don't know what to do with the feelings that connection brings up. This doesn't make it okay. It doesn't excuse emotional neglect or make the experience any less painful. But understanding the root of their behavior can help you separate their emotional limitations from your self-worth. You are not too much. You are not unlovable. You are not the reason they shut down. You are simply someone who offered real intimacy to someone who wasn't prepared to receive it. What often makes this worse is that silence can feel like punishment. When someone withdraws emotionally, it can feel like rejection, abandonment, or even emotional cruelty. And because human beings are wired for connection, your brain will try to make sense of the disconnect, often blaming yourself in the process. This is where the real damage happens. You begin to believe that their emotional absence is evidence that you are not enough. But that's the lie. The truth is, their silence reflects their emotional capacity, not your value. You could be the most emotionally intelligent, loving, grounded person, and still, someone avoidant will pull away if they're not ready. Not because of you, but because your presence activates parts of themselves they are not yet ready to face. You cannot force someone to be present, to communicate, or to meet you in the emotional space you're offering. That's their choice, and their failure to show up is not a verdict on your worth. It's a mirror showing you their readiness. You are worthy of consistent love, mutual effort, and emotional safety. Someone's inability to give you that doesn't diminish your value. It just shows you where their limitations begin. And the moment you stop trying to get validation from someone who can't give it, is the moment you begin to return home in the end. Understanding why avoidance let you walk away isn't about blaming them, it's about freeing yourself. It's about recognizing that their distance reflects their fear, not your inadequacy. You deserve a love that doesn't run when it gets real, a connection that feels safe, mutual, and emotionally present. Thank you for listening, for holding space for these truths, and most importantly, for valuing your own worth enough to choose healing over confusion. Keep walking toward love that meets you with open arms. You are more than enough.